but it's my world. And if I decide that they don't know, I decide that they don't know each other, you know?
That's true. Yes, you are writing this. You get to do whatever you want. This is If It Was a Book. Today we talked about sports romance and rivals in college and how women's sports teams are neglected by some universities, and we did so with our lovely guest, Dodo. Dodo, how would you describe the book that we wrote today?
I would describe it as a basketball college romance with two athletes from the same sport but on their respective teams, men's basketball, women's basketball, who have to work together on and off the court to bring more attention to our women's basketball team who excels in their sport.
Okay, hello everybody. This is Ashley from TikTok's 130 Books in 130 Days. Today you're listening to the If It Was a Book podcast, the show that takes real life stories and rewrites them into what would happen if it was a book. For people who love reading, writing, pop culture, and general ADHD chaos, today I am joined by the lovely Dodo. I wonder if your username, the book, is going to get us marked as explicit. We'll see.
And I've had it forever, and nobody has ever had a problem or said anything about it, so I mean, fingers crossed, but we can go with just
we'll
if
see.
that makes it less,
I'll put your name
explicit
on the captions here. But Dodo is a book influencer and a designer who makes really adorable bookish merch, so go order stuff from her Ko-fi. Dodo, do you have any other qualifications you'd like to add for why you're the perfect person to rewrite a story into a book?
Yes, I am a self-certified sports romance fanatic, and that is a little hint as to what we're gonna talk about. But yeah, love sports in general, and then love sports romance. And I guess because I keep track of all my reading, I've read almost 500 romance books, and a good portion, I want to say 20%, 20 to 30, has been solely sports romance. So I feel like that is my qualification for what we're going to be discussing today.
Dodo, do you have a story that you would like to share with us that you want to turn into maybe a sports romance?
I do. And this is kind of the beginning of a story,
okay,
because as I said before, big sports fan. And me and my friends and my boyfriend, we all, four of us, split season tickets for our local NBA team, the Minnesota Timberwolves, if anyone's familiar with that team or with the NBA in general. So anyways, we became really big Timberwolves fans last season, and then this season we're let's get season tickets, let's split it, so we have a full season, then we split it. So anyways, me and my boyfriend take half the tickets, and then my two friends take half the tickets. But some of the games I've been able to go with my friend, just me and her, and watch the game. So it's been really fun. And because I'm taken, I don't ever get to look at dating apps for obvious reasons, right? But I like the idea of the scrolling and the flipping between, I think that's fun. It's kind of like shopping.
It's so gratifying.
Kind of. And it's I've been in a relationship for 7 years now, so far removed from the dating scene, for good reason. I don't want to be a part of it at all, but the idea of just going through the dating apps sounds fun. So my friend who is single, we were at the game having a good time, whatever. And if you've ever been to a sporting event for men's sports, men everywhere, there's dudes freaking everywhere, and whatever, there's plenty of women too. Women like
right.
Sports. I'm there, me and my friend are there, we're having fun.
Yeah.
But it's there's just a lot of dudes. Okay, that's just how it is.
Sure.
It is what it is. And I go to women's sports games too, because we're also season ticket holders for the Minnesota Lynx, which is the professional women's basketball team. So we watch all sports. But anyways, we're at this game, and she gets out her phone and she's I'm just gonna start scrolling. And I was can I let me see your phone? I want to get in on the fun, because I don't ever, I don't use dating apps, obviously. So whatever, we're scrolling through the people. I'm having the time of my life. I'm oh my God, look at this guy and look at this guy and whatever. We're having a good time. And we find a couple where I was oh my God, it literally says big Minnesota Timberwolves fan, and the distance was 0.3 or whatever. So that means that they were in the stadium somewhere with us watching this game. And I thought that would be the best way to start a relationship or a romance is like you're at a sporting event and you're on your dating app and then you find somebody who has like that similar interest,
Mm-hmm.
and then lo and behold they're there, right, and they're watching the sport. So I think that's kind of where the start of the story would be. Because in that moment, when we're like looking at these like profiles on this dating app, I was like, wow, that would be like a great way to meet somebody. It's like you have this shared interest in sports, which does bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be nice if that person, that love interest, wasn't an athlete.
Okay.
Because I know that in a lot of sports romances, actually, if not all of them, they're always gonna, like, one of the characters is always a athlete, which is fun. But sometimes I think it's fun to like be able to experience watching sports with another person, like that, and that person being your partner. Like, I go to games with my boyfriend, we have a lot of fun together. If I was hypothetically dating somebody that was a professional athlete, we would never get to watch sports together.
Mm-hmm.
So that is kind of the beginning of where I was headed with this.
Yeah. No, I like it. I think just to add some conflict to the beginning of the story, I think that it's great that they're right next to each other and they're in the same sports stadium. I know a lot about sports. Um, they're in the same sports stadium, but what if they are like fans of rival teams? So then there's like a star-crossed situation.
Well, like, and honestly, like, this does happen when we go to games. There'll always be at least one person like around us where they're like cheering for the other team, and then I will look at Alex. I'll be like, is this guy serious? Like, yelling super loud for the other team. Like, obviously we're all really big, fans of our sports teams,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always really funny when you're like, when they're the visiting team and they're cheering for that other team. It's like they're the only ones in the entire arena screaming and yelling for that team. But that would be so funny. It's like, oh, it's like that one really loud guy on the other side of the stadium, and he clearly likes the other team. And it's like, here I am cheering for my team.
I think it would be cool if so there are some rival sports teams that have specific their specific rival. So like my school in college had a rival school that's a couple of towns over, and that was like a really big thing with the school, is that like the schools hate each other. So then I think that would be an interesting relationship, in that once they start liking each other and their friends are like, they go to the enemy school, we can't have that.
Right. To be honest with you, like, yes, this like starting scenario started off as like I was at a professional sports team show, like whatever you call it. I know so much about sports. It's a show.
It's a show. The show must go on.
It's a performance. If I'm being so real, my favorite sports romance books are set in college. They're college sports romances. I feel like that setting is a lot easier to do, like the rival thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like, not that I don't love professional sports, but maybe in this scenario, it would be like they're in college, and let's like, I just think that the college setting is a lot more fun to read about, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I tend to gravitate towards like the college romance books. And I think like college rivalry is even better. Like, it feels like there's more at stake when it's like your college rival team versus like in the professional sports world, where it's like, and basically anybody in your like conference can be your rival, and it changes a lot with like when players get traded and stuff. So I feel like that would be more fun if it was like set in college. And plus I feel like a lot of like college age people are more into like the dating app thing. So I feel like that scenario would make a lot more sense.
Yeah. I know that it was my idea for them to be rivals, and that's totally still an option. A second option that has appeared in my brain is that they are in the same school, but for rival sports. I know you didn't want them to be athletes, but suddenly I have athletes on the brain. So like men's basketball versus women's basketball, and like the women's basketball team, I'm going to say, is better, but they don't get the same audience. They don't get the same funding. They don't get the same, oh my God, what's it called? The school cares more about men. The fans also like prestige. They don't get the same prestige as the men's team, even though they have like won more games or they're ranked higher in their conference, but in women's basketball. So the men just like get more and do more, and they have new uniforms and they get like shoes and they get all these things that the women's basketball team does not get, even though they are like performing better on the same level they are both very good athletes, but they're treated very differently by the school. And I think that would be a really interesting dynamic, especially as I'm sure many athletes don't know that the other team is not being treated the same way as like their team.
Yeah. I like that too, honestly. That would be, oh my God, okay, as you were talking, I was like, I just thought of like another way to make this like even
Okay.
better, like, or more interesting. Like, what if, okay, wait, okay, my brain is like going in like a million
Me all the
different
time.
directions. So, like, what if
For ADHD chaos.
the, so let's just say that the two like characters are both athletes on their respective rival teams. So if we're going to use like basketball, women's basketball, and then men's basketball. But what if in this like dating app scenario, your either dating app like profiles had nothing to do with basketball whatsoever? So like let's just say he is at her game and he's just, you know, whatever
Mm-hmm.
on the phone, and then is like, oh, like matches with this person where you have no clue that you're at her
Okay.
basketball game, and the profile has nothing to do with her being a student
Mm-hmm.
athlete or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you have no idea. Like, I think that would be really funny because then they could like start dating or talking or whatever, and then later on they're like, wait a second. And I don't know if that makes sense because I don't know if
No,
like
it
in college,
does.
if you know each, like if you're a student athlete, I feel like student athlete circles are kind of small,
That's true.
but
That's fair.
it's my world, and if I decide that they don't know, I decide that they don't know each other, you know.
That's true. Yes, you are writing this. You get to do whatever you want. So I think I like that, and I want to stick with that. What about the reason that he's even at her game? Because I want to say that he came to the women's basketball game. I want to say that the assistant coach, so like not the head coach, but because the head coach is like boys rule, girls rule, but the assistant coach is like, hey, you guys are not winning very many games. As the women's team that's winning more, I think you should go to their game and sort of see their technique and see what they're doing differently and see if you can't learn anything from them and bring that back to your games. We need to start winning more. And he's like at the game and not paying attention because he's like, women's sports. And he's like on his phone and he's swiping and he's not respecting. It can be like during breaks and stuff. Not that he's not respecting the team, not that he's not respecting the game, but he's not paying enough attention to notice that the person he's swiping on is also the person that's like right in front of him playing the game.
Yes, I think that would be great because again, like we don't want it to be like he doesn't respect women's sports, because I think there has to be like, I feel like unfortunately that is like the reality in real life sports, but in my fake scenario of a romance book, I want it to be like where they have
Mm-hmm.
mutual respect, because I mean they're all athletes, right? But he's just like not super invested or
Mm-hmm.
interested, which is like fair. If you've never like watched a particular team or particular sport, you may not be that invested.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that happened to me like before I got into basketball. Like I wasn't that invested until I was there and like watching the game, and I got more
Mm-hmm.
engaged with it. So it would be really funny if it's like he's swiping because he's not engaged with the game that's happening, you know, swipes matches with this person who unknowingly is also playing on
Right.
the court, and then all of a sudden he gets invested in this game and just somehow doesn't connect the two pieces, because I just think miscommunication would just be really
Yeah.
funny. It's like, how did you not put two and two together? They're both right in front of you, right? But it's almost like you weren't thinking about it in that
Yeah.
context. So it's like obviously you wouldn't. So I think that would be funny.
No, I like that. I think that's a great idea. I like that a lot. Okay, wonderful. So we have swiped on each other. Can we name some people so I can write it down and start talking about them, not be the girl, the guy, the person?
We have to, oh my God, names. This is like the one thing I like did not think about at all.
We have to name them. It's
Like
very important.
at all. I did not know I'd have to pick names.
We can take one from a book. Here,
Oh my God.
let's open a book.
Just get one.
So we have Simi, Jack, Xavier, Chloe, Mario, Bella, Trisha,
I guess we could
Jane.
I could pick like actual like basketball players,
Yeah,
men and women. Like I could think of names, just people off of like the teams that I know.
sure. Sounds good to me.
I guess that would work. I guess we're gonna stick to like the theme,
Yeah.
because one of my, well, I don't know if she's not on the like the links, but one of my like favorite female basketball players is Cameron Brink.
Okay.
I think she's just like one of the coolest players in the league, and she's only going to go into her second year this like upcoming season. So I feel like that would be a good name. Just like, and I like the name Cameron
Me too.
anyway. So I think that can be our first character.
Yeah. Now we need him to have a name. And we also need her friend to have a name because they're kind of swiping together. They each need a friend, I think.
Everyone needs a friend. I hate, okay, this is like maybe a side tangent, but like I always hate when the characters don't have friends in books.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have like a single friend. Like that always bothered me.
I agree.
But that's just like a side thing. It's like every name that's on my brain.
Let's go with Simone. I've got a sports romance right here by Sultani. So I'm going to say that's her friend, Simone. Simone is her friend. So Cameron and Simone are besties. And then let's see, for him, a sports romance. I've got a different sports romance.
All the sports romance.
So Robbie is an option. The guy's name is Zach. Chip. That's quite the name. Let's not call him Chip, actually. Zach is a very sports boy name.
I was gonna say Chip can be like his friend's name because I think like the friend
Sure.
have like a funny name.
Yeah.
You know, like that's so funny.
Yeah. So do you want Zach for our dude or something else for him?
I feel like we can do the name like Jaden really sticks out. That's again, well, that's one of his name. Like that's one of their names. I feel like that's a good one. Let's just go with that one. I'm okay with that.
Cameron and Jaden. We like. And then their friends Simone and Chip.
Chip. I will remember Chip's name.
What a guy.
That's too funny.
They both play basketball. They're basketball players. So you know things. I do not. Do we have positions?
Yes. But those positions are not like I'm not really great with those. I know it's like point guard is kind of like the main kind of the person that controls the direction of like where the ball is going. So like team holds the possession and then the point guard's kind of like the one that's like okay, kind of deciding the flow of the game. So our main character can be the point guard because that's the one I do know.
Yeah, sounds great.
And actually, I think they should both be point guards. I think that would just be funny.
I was thinking that as well. Like, yeah. I think that
like
they can be on the same level.
Then there
like
can
that.
be a point in this where it's like they get tips from each other. You know, like that would be really because they're playing the same position.
I like that. Right wing, is that in football or basketball?
I think that would work. I do need to maybe I need to look this up because I don't want to like embarrass myself with my lack of knowledge when I'm supposed to like know these things.
We love sports.
I just know like I'm gonna Google this and I'm gonna be like, oh my god, how did I not think of that? Oh my god. Okay, we have point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. So I like the idea of like someone being a shooting guard because that's a really important position.
I want Simone to be a power forward. I like the name of that.
Yes.
I like the sound. I want Simone to be a power forward. And you wanted Chip to be a shooting guard? That's the other position?
You know what? We can make Chip the center because the center is usually like the tallest person on the team. Right. That's the person that normally hangs around under the basket when they're when they have the ball. I think Chip would just like really thrive in that. Also, because when Chip, I think like he could not shoot a 3 to save his life. You know, I want that to be like what he's known for. It's like you are a great player. You cannot shoot a 3 to save your life. So we're gonna go with he's a center.
Okay, so we've got our pals. So Jaden has swiped on Cameron. I want to say Cameron maybe already swiped on him, or maybe we'll swipe on him later. Anyways, they're gonna match. So Cameron and Simone are currently playing the game, and Chip is complaining. Ugh, why do we have to be at this game? I don't want to be here. Ugh. And Jaden, I think, do we want to say Jaden? Jaden is like the captain? Or no, what year are these people in?
I want to say like they have to be like older. They have to be like, let's just say they're in like final year. The older the characters are, the better. Like my brain just likes that.
Yeah, okay. So I was going to say that Jaden is the captain. And he's trying to the assistant coach told him that we have to be here. So we got to be here, trying to keep morale up on his team. So also he is not paying attention. So maybe that's when he puts his phone away, so he's not getting any responses. I mean, maybe she wouldn't be texting during the game, but he puts his phone away and then is engaged with the game because he's trying to keep his players engaged, setting a good example. And he's like, wait, they're like really good. They're really good. And he gets very invested.
I also want to say, like, a way that you like get really into a game is when other people are like cheering around you. So I want to say in our story that there is a dedicated, like very diehard dedicated fan section for the women's team. Like they might be small, like it'll be like a smaller group of people, but they are mighty where they like just cheer. So you know what I mean? Like I think that would get then the guys to be like hyped up, like, oh my God, like these people are getting so into this game. Like, we need to be getting into the game. Like, I want that encouragement. And then I just like the idea of a dedicated fan base for our women's team because they deserve it, like 100%.
Yeah, no, I love that. One of them should be a sibling of either Simone or Cameron, just because I think that that should come up later in the story. They, like, weren't paying attention at the beginning of the game, and then, like, the dedicated fan base saw that and knew that they were, like, I can't think of a good one-liner, but like they're gonna be at a joint party later and the sibling is gonna go up to the other ones and be like, are you talking to these guys? They don't even respect you. And that's like what was happening at the game.
Yeah.
And it's going to cause a little bit of conflict, I think.
I like that. Yeah. I think that would be really funny. Again, because I think they should get exposed too for that.
Yeah.
You know, for that not paying attention.
Yeah.
Not being into it.
I like that. So one thing about college is that typically you can get into most sports games for free as a student because they want to pack the stadium. I want that to be like a thing for later on. Like, yes, we have a small but mighty fan base, but we're not packing the court, the stadium. Where do you play a basketball game?
Yeah, stadium or arena.
So we're not packing the arena for women's basketball. And I think that once he and his team start going, I think attendance is going to pick up and people are going to start going. Either just because the numbers are going up because his team is there, or also like maybe their friends who like want to hang out. One thing I miss about college is that like your friends were just right there all the time. And you could just be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go do this. Would you like to attend? And also it's free. And you could just get a group to go and do this silly, goofy thing with you. And it didn't cost you any money. You could probably walk to it. You get to hang out with your friends. And it's like something, that's why college settings are so good, is you're like, okay, well, we've got our friends right here. No one's having long distance. You can only text your friends. You're all alone in the city situations. Like, everybody's right there. You can walk to places. You don't have to worry too much about getting rides and different things. And when it's a walkable community where you can also, like, go to the food and stuff, you can just, it has a lot of built-in settings and characters that are not available in a post-college situation.
I know. Post-college is, like, for lack of better words, lonely.
Yeah.
Like, and so I like the college setting also because college students get so into their school's teams, whatever sport that is. Like, it might not even be a sport you've ever watched before, but because it's like your college's team, you're like, oh, I'm going to ride. Like, I'm going to go hard for this team because this is my school.
Yeah.
That like built-in sense of sports community where it's like, no matter what the team is, like, we're gonna cheer for them because they are. My university, the mascot was the Gophers, so like, oh, they're all Gophers, right? I know. Yeah. I love being a Gopher. It was great.
So I'm thinking about, like, since his team is like bigger and more supported by the school, he probably has like a boosters club for the basketball team where they are like supporting the team either in getting them new uniforms, getting them new shoes for the game, getting their locker room repainted, getting like little snacks and stuff before the game. Like, they're there to boost morale and also to publicize the team. And I don't think that the women's basketball team has that. And so I think that it would be cool as the story progresses, as he starts to date her and starts to become very into women's basketball, if the boys team becomes the boosters for the girls team for that year, and then it'll become like a real club where other students will participate, but they kind of get it going where they're championing the women's team and being like, well, they're wearing 10-year-old uniforms, like we need to do better than that, and maybe either petition the board or give up some of their funding in order to allow the girls team to get new uniforms. And I think that would be good. Or like they get a sponsor where the sponsor is like, well, we really want to sponsor the men's team. And they're like, great, we will accept that if you also sponsor the women's team.
I like that too, because then it shows like mutual support for each other.
Yeah.
And that shows that they respect that sport and that sports team. Another thing that I just thought of that can be connected to this is that for like the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Lynx, they share the same arena. So we can have our characters share the same arena during their like respective seasons. But when they share the arena, the men's locker room does not get used by the women's team, and the women's team has to use the visitor locker room, like that would have been used for the visitors playing the men's team. And I think that would be another conflict that shows like inequity among like the two sports teams, because like clearly it's not right for the men to like have their own locker room that's like beautiful and like, you know, has all these amenities that like the women's team are just like not allowed to use. And that was always something that has bothered me, like when I go to the games, because I know that fact and I'm like, that is so crappy that there's not a way to like share that locker room space. It's like, no, the women's team, even though this is your home court, you have to go use the visitors locker room that is used for the visitors of the men's team. Isn't that like, and it bothers me every time I go to a women's basketball game. I'm just like, man, I hate that they can't use that locker room. So I think that would cause like another thing where it's like the, you know, like Jaden, Chip, and their teammates realize how unfair that is. And then they like try to campaign for that to stop, and find a way to share that space, because that's just like the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So wait, when the visiting women's team is there, where do they change?
And then they have a separate space as well. So like, yeah, I know it doesn't make any sense, but like they have like a visitor locker room space for the, I know, and it makes no sense to have like 3 separate locker rooms, because you won't allow the professional women's team to use the men's locker room, which could just be called locker room, because let's just be real, that's all it is, right? So
if you have 3 locker rooms and you want to have it gender separated, you can have a men's locker room, a women's locker room, and a visitor locker room. There's not 2 visiting teams at the same time. They don't need to like leave anything there. They're packing in and packing out. There's no, oh my God, I don't even go to this game and I am so angry.
It bothers me every single time I think about it. Like knowing that fact and like knowing, because I know what the locker room looks like for the men's team, and it's beautiful. It's so nice. Okay. It's so luxurious. And it's just, again, it just illustrates how like they're not treated the same in any way with like salary, but also with like how they get treated in like their own arena. And the I'm going to just keep going. The gag is the women's team has won 4 championships. And guess how many the men's team have won?
2.
0. Anyways, rant over. But that's just, yeah.
No, that's like exactly what we're saying is going to happen in this book, where it's going to be the women's team is objectively a better team, but because it's the women's team, it's not as prestigious and not as well attended, just because people don't care about it quite as much, even though they're literally a better team.
Yeah, and I know that like in romance novels, sometimes we don't like to bring too much of like reality into it, because it's like, it's a book and we want to just like live in this fictional world. But unfortunately, that's just like what the real world looks like for women's sports. And so I think it's really important to like at least highlight that and then be like, but here's how in a world this gets resolved, because it's going to get fixed, right? Or we're going to find a solution that makes everybody like happy. But yeah, that is That was crazy.
Oh my god. Okay. Okay. So, great. I need there to be a scene somewhere near the beginning where they meet up, and I want to say that she recognizes immediately that he is on the men's team because she knows who the players are, and he doesn't recognize immediately. She recognizes him and he does not recognize her, and she's like, are you kidding?
Right. Like said about like how do you not know who I yeah.
Right. And he is like, I'm gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna see you around, but maybe he even asks her if she plays a different sport because I assume they go to the same like sports functions at the university. So maybe he thinks she plays like volleyball or track or something, and he's like, "Hey, which sport do you play?" I want to say that she's tall, so he's probably like volleyball, and she's like, "Are you joking?"
Oh, you know what would be okay, so I love where we're going with this. I think it'd be awesome if it was like they first met, like their first meeting is at kind of like a sports gala. Like let's just say the school likes to put on like a gala where everyone gets like really dressed up and really fancy, and it's to highlight the university's sports teams. I think it would be really funny, and I've seen this like video trend on TikTok where it was like this man is trying to mansplain to me something that I already do, and little does he know
Uh-huh.
I do that thing. So like the one on TikTok was this man mansplaining how like pilot stuff, like, and then she's like, it's a video of her being like, I'm a pilot, and she just like allows him to basically mansplain something she already knows. I think that would be a really funny scenario where it's like they meet and they're like chatting, and then he's like basically like, oh yeah, like I'm a basketball player, I'm the captain of the basketball team, I'm a point guard. And he's like, and that's what, and this is what a point guard is, in case like basically about it, because I think that would be really funny if she's just like standing there like this, like, cool, keep going, like keep talking about how to be a point guard, not
Dig
knowing that
that
she is
hole.
also a point guard for the team. And she just like lets him kind of dig himself into this really embarrassing hole, because eventually she's gonna be like, okay, yeah. And then I think it would be funny, like, as he's trying to like mansplain this whole thing, like, yeah, here's how this position works, and whatever, that like one of her teammates or friends, we can bring in Simone, is like kind of interrupts the conversation and is like, hey, like we need you over here, like coach needs you over here for this, like some kind of conversation where it's like revealed that she is indeed a basketball player and also the point guard of like her prospective team. And then he just sits there like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, I've totally embarrassed myself.
So instead of Simone coming over, I think that like, so they're at this gala that's like trying to fundraise or what have you. And so I think that someone from the school should come up and be like, ah, both of my basketball captains right here. And then I'm just so glad y'all are getting along, like blah, blah, blah. This is Cameron, and she's our point guard and captain of the women's team. And this is Jaden. He's also our point guard and captain of the men's team. And then maybe however many games the women's team and men's team have won, something like hyping them up, not realizing that Jaden has just stepped in it.
Yeah. And then I think I want to like take it back to like how they end up meeting each other at this gala. And I want to say like they're chatting on the dating app that they've matched on.
Okay.
Right. And he's like basically saying like, oh yeah, I'm going to this event. And in turn, I want it to be like where she's like, oh, I'm also going to this. But he doesn't put the pieces together because he's just like not thinking about it in that way, that she's an athlete. He thinks, oh, she's going there for like a different reason. And then they like start like that's when they meet and start talking. I want it to be like where he just doesn't, like he's just oblivious to the fact that like she's there for the same reason he is. Because I just think it would be really funny in that miscommunication.
Yes, and to add to the miscommunication, I think that we need to do. So I'm thinking that his profile is like maybe a bit misleading on the dating app. That he's like, he's a big basketball guy on campus, and he doesn't want all of the, I don't know what the basketball term is, but in hockey romance, which I have read a lot of, he's like, I don't want any puck bunnies to be chasing me on this app. He doesn't want that to happen. So maybe on the app, he's just like Jay, and then a couple of group pics, and you're not too sure which guy he is. And so that's why she wasn't like, yeah, this is the basketball captain of the men's team who she knows.
Right.
She was just like not sure exactly. She was like, this is a group, maybe a couple of group shots, and maybe it's one group shot. She's like, all of these men are attractive, and this guy is Jay, and I don't know a Jay. I know a Jaden,
Right,
I don't know a Jay, so...
Yeah, and like the reasoning for that could easily be like she's just kind of like casually dating, doesn't really care, or is just like swiping mindlessly, which like I don't know if that ever, again, like I'm not on dating apps. I don't know how truly these things work or what the thought process is, but I can imagine someone just getting on there and just like, you know, going all crazy with the thing because they're like not really paying attention, because they just don't like, or they're not that invested in this like dating app, because dating apps can, in my perspective, seem really like casual and not that serious. So she could be a casual, not that serious attitude, because I think that's how everyone feels about dating apps in general. So that can be like the reason why she doesn't realize that Jay, this profile, is this guy until maybe that like she finds out like when they meet, because I think that would also be where she's like, that's this guy. She's like, oh, okay. And obviously doesn't recognize her because of the, you know, we've talked about how he doesn't know her. And then he can go into like, yeah, I'm a point guard. And, you know.
Okay, I like that. So I think that our intro is set up very well. I think that then Cameron and Jaden are still like into each other, but kind of keep seeing each other at these different sporting events. They'll probably like take some same buses to different activities. I don't know how sports work. I don't know if games happen at the same time for both teams, but they'll see each other a lot in these sports areas. Maybe they even have a class together. Like, he never noticed that she was in this class because he didn't care. But anyways, now they're into each other. Very good. They are seeing each other at different parties. They're hanging out. They're like kind of being a bit antagonistic towards each other because she's like, hey, you don't respect my game. And he's like, yes, I do. It's my game too. But doesn't really understand that there are inequalities between the two teams within the university. And so I think that, I don't know how the middle should go. Feel free to write the middle. But I think that the end should be him turning the second guest locker room into the women's locker room for her team and being like, y'all are not visitors, y'all are a team, y'all are respected, and we are going to make the university respect you.
Yes, and I think for like that middle section that we're kind of trying to hash out right now, I think what would be really great, so for like women's professional basketball teams, or like women's basketball teams in general, even college ones, they have a practice squad. So like they have the main team and then they have the practice squad, which is usually, for women's teams, it's usually like men who will then act as opponents so that when the women are training, they can like get better at their skills and stuff. And it's literally like they're just a practice squad. They are not like part of the like college team. Those guys are literally just there to help the women train. So I think that what we can do is so like in the beginning, when we like, the reason they're at the game in the very beginning of the book is because their coach is like, you need to like, you know, get better. Like, you guys need to step up your game. The women's team is winning games and championships left and right, and you guys aren't. I think it would be really funny if then they make the men's basketball team be the practice squad for the women's team to help them, but also to like learn and get skills from each other, because typically that is what the women's team would already have, is an already built-in practice squad that is usually made up of men. And then it would just be funny, like, okay, actually, practice squad, you guys are out. We're going to put in the men's basketball team because they need to, like, get their...
They need to practice as well.
And the best way to do it is to have them help the women's team win their national champion and, like, help train. And then I think, like, our two main characters, Jaden and Cameron, can get, like, kind of, like, I don't know, because they play the same position. So then they can, like, bond in that way. That's how they can, like, further the relationship, because they're, like, bonding, and they're also trying to keep their, like, respective teams to not have animosity towards each other. Because in my head, I can just see, like, all the regular practice squad people leave, and then the men's basketball team comes in, and the rest of the women's team are like, what the heck? Like, no, we can't. like, this is ridiculous, we don't want this. But then Cameron's like, no guys, like, this might be a good opportunity for us to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And then in turn, like, it would be a mutually beneficial situation. So I think that would be kind of funny. And then the whole
No, I like that. I think that that's fun.
and I think it would be fun because then the whole story is centering the women's basketball team,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that is where I want the real like focus to be. It's like we want to put an emphasis on women's sports. I think it would be beneficial or like impactful for the men's team to be helping the women's team.
Mm-hmm.
But then they all end up helping anyway. It all becomes a really big like life lesson or whatever, and they all help each other out. So something like that I feel like would be really fun.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I like it a lot. I think that this is good. I don't even know if we need any more scenes. So we've got our setup. We have our middle. They're bonding over this like practice team. And I think that maybe the Nationals should be a home game. I don't know if that would ever happen. But for the purposes of this book, Nationals is a home game, and that's when they're going to do the big reveal of we made the locker room your locker room. And it's going to have like all their names on their little cubbies and maybe new uniforms as well. But that's not necessary. I mean, that'd be great, but that's not like a requirement for this. Just sort of we both helped each other so much, and now we're bringing it back, and you deserve this, and we're getting you what you deserve. And I don't know. I think maybe they're both like seniors, so maybe the epilogue is that they get cast, and that's not the correct word. Drafted? Question marks. Is there a draft in basketball?
Right.
Okay, they get drafted into two teams that you mentioned earlier, the Timberwolves and the other one.
The Lynx, yeah. So it would still be funny because then they would still be in the same arena, the same, kind of they were in college. It's like, oh, they're in the same exact scenario.
They get to stay in the same city. They're not drafted to different cities,
Yeah.
so our little relationship that we've formed gets to stay. I like it. Oh my god. How do you feel? Is there anything you want to add?
Honestly, I think it's perfect. Like and I love because again, as much as like I love sports romance and I've read so many, and majority of those are always hockey romance books, which love hockey. I live in Minnesota. Minnesota is the state of hockey. Hockey is such a huge deal here, like massive. Like the high school teams here in Minnesota for their like their state championships, they play in the same place where the professional hockey team plays. Like that's how big of a deal it is here in the state. However, since going to like basketball games here, basketball fans in Minnesota like go so hard for that team. And so it's really cool to see like, yes, we're known for hockey, but basketball is like another like just a huge love for the people in this state. So I just and there's not enough like basketball romance books out there in my opinion. Like there's a lot of hockey, but basketball is so much fun and I love it in real life, like watching as a fan, and getting to read about it like in books is also really fun. And I've definitely found like very good ones, obviously. But
Yeah, I mean, Kennedy Ryan's Long Shot is a great one. It's a basketball sports romance, but also a romantic thriller. It's very scary.
yeah, and that whole series is so good and such a love letter to like professional, like the NBA. Like it was so, like it's just such a good series.
And I always end all the episodes asking for book recs. So do you feel ready to answer some book rec questions?
I am ready.
Okay, so the first one is, what is your favorite book or series of all time?
That is such a hard. I can't believe that's the one you start.
You said you were ready.
Okay. This is actually not that hard for me to answer. My favorite book or series has to be The Loser's Duet by Harley LaRue. And it starts with the novella The Dare, and then it goes into Losers Part 1 and Part 2. So it's like basically a three book series. That has to be my favorite ones of all time.
And then what was the last book you rated 5 stars?
Okay, let me consult my journal. Okay, the last book I rated 5 stars was an arc that I got to read. It's You Started It by Jackie Kalaleha, and it's her second like YA book. and it was so good.
When does it come out?
May 20th.
And what is your most anticipated release of 2025?
Oh my God. These are some really good questions. Hold on. Of course I have a list. Okay, one that I am really anticipating is like Anna Huang's newest book, The King of Envy. I know that one's coming out shortly, and I've loved that series. So I'll say that one is one of my most anticipated releases.
And what is the book that you recommend the most?
I want to say recommend the most.
You're a book influencer. What books do you influence the most?
Another one that I've really talked about a ton is a sports romance like book series by Maren Moore. The Home Run Proposal is one of my favorite sports romance series. It's a college baseball romance, and that one's so much fun. And I do talk about that book and that series a lot, so I'll say that.
I think I did read that on your recommendation.
No, yes, it's really good. She the best sports romance books that I've ever read, and they're just really fun. Like, they're so much fun, and yeah, they're a blast. I love recommending her books.
That was If It Was a Book. If you would like to submit your story as an option for one of our guests to help rewrite, you can do so at ifitwasabook@gmail.com. You can find our podcast on YouTube for video episodes. It's also streaming wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, and more. You can follow the podcast at If It Was a Book on Instagram and TikTok. You can follow me, the host, on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Wicked Reads. You can follow Dodo, our lovely guest. Where can we find you, Dodo?
You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all under the exact same username at Dodo the Book Bitch. Hopefully that doesn't get censored, but yeah.
And we now have a website. So the website is ifitwasabook.com. It's very exciting. I designed it myself. Don't judge it too hard. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to be notified about future episodes, be sure to subscribe. You can leave us a review and tell us what you thought. You can leave a rating. Everything helps. If you're watching the video episode on YouTube, you can hit the little thumbs up. New episodes come out every Monday. Thanks for watching or listening, however you enjoyed this podcast. Bye.